Hey, welcome to today's Cam and Otis show, or this week, I guess. We do it on a day, but we do it weekly. So, yeah, welcome to this week's Cam and Otis show. Got Scott Kinder, return guest from episode number 31. Going to dive into some more leadership things, and really the thing I think I want to focus on today, because it's always fun to focus on anything with Scott, is that startup, creating that niche and driving that niche to a movement. And I think, Scott, I know I'm talking in some abstract terms at this point, but I'm going to guess you know what I'm talking about, because you're doing two things, or done one, and that movement's growing, and that would be project management training done by the Institute of Project Management. And now you started another project. DOL mentors the DOL Academy and how that's doing. So I'm just curious, when you go into this mode, how are you, well, one, let's start with simple. How are you staying focused on it? Because it can be so difficult to be, you get one, you lose three. You get one, you lose three. So how are you staying motivated on these things?
Um, I mean, without sounding oversimplistic, I think it's just being intentional. Being intentional in what you're doing and being intentional in the build plans and realizing that just like most things in life, it's really not silos of efforts that we're doing. There's a lot of synergies between the two, right? And I truly, all the way back from my early Morgan Stanley days, when I was an undergraduate, even, in my teens and early 20s in university, I hated silos. I hated, departments in this and bureaucracies or whatever. So I've always tried to break them down as much as I can. And sometimes you got to keep them for regulatory reasons and everything else. But it's just being intentional. It's knowing that to grow this, I can't do that at the cost of this. And it's a good idea fairies of the world that lose that ability to focus on two things at once because they see a shiny object and they start chasing it over and anything else. But I'm very deliberate, and when I see a shiny object, I'll only allow myself to chase it for so long before I come to my trusted network and go, is this a good idea or not? So one is being intentional, and two is surrounding yourself with people that are going to tell you, quite frankly, when you're doing something stupid. And my wife is my best sounding board, and we make a point every day. We have a toddler, and we take a walk every single day, no matter how busy we are. We take a walk for my daughter's nap time, and it's 45 minutes to an hour, but I'm out there talking and throwing all these ideas past her and everything else. And sometimes you go, and I can just tell by like the no interest at all that it's not a good idea, and I'll let it kind of die. But again, then I'll shut up. I'm not too proud to say it's a bad idea. Not all ideas are worthy of execution. So when I get the feedback that an idea is worthy of execution, I deliberately and intentionally focus on putting the next steps in the project plan together for it.
I think you kind of touched on something that I found myself doing here recently as I'm getting into the entrepreneurial world and spinning way more plates than I expected I was going to be dealing with. But one of the things is you still have good ideas all the time, because when you're working, we talked about invoking the muse. When you're in there doing the work, you're going to keep having ideas, and the idea fairy is just going to keep popping up over and over. And a lot of people kind of take the approach of being overly defensive in that sense, where it's, I have to focus on this one project. I can't think about anything else. And you lose out on a lot of your potential when you do that. What you really have to do is dedicate, I think for myself, I usually do about 30 minutes to an hour of good idea. Okay, brainstorm, write this all down, go sit outside and meditate about it for a little bit, and then call Otis or a buddy of mine or something and say, hey, I got this idea. Bounce it off them a little bit. They, just like you, if they say it's a bad idea, then okay, throw it out, put it in the back of my pocket, something, and move forward from there and kind of get back to work.
It's just like buying something. If you allow yourself to let the urge die a little bit, it'll go away, right? So you want that new shiny toy, and if you wait 24 hours, you might not want it as bad as you did yesterday. Sorry, Otis, go ahead.
Well, no, you Camden kind of talked around it, but I mean, I call it the back of your book process. And if you're focused on something, and they teach you this, if you meditate, and I know all three of us do in different forms, but when you do that and that thought comes in, which they do, what do you do with it? Do you chase it? Do you follow it? and become distracted out of your meditation. And it's the same thing when you're focused on an item and an idea and you're driving down that road, that those other ideas come in. And what I tell my entrepreneurs that I coach to do is go to the back of your book and write it down on the back page of your book. And then it does two things. It satisfies your mind. That physical action of actually writing it down is a process that is proven psychologically to help clear your mind and satisfy your mind, kind of like the notepad on the side on your nightstand in the middle of the night, right? That same principle. And then the other piece, and this is kind of the bonus of it, because you're putting it in your notebook, is it's there when you want. It's like, hey, I want to do a little bit of extra brainstorming on some ideas and things like that. So, you get a twofold thing like that. Now, I want to jump back a little bit, stay in this same theme of growing a movement, and let's hit some waypoints on IPM and the project management, because that's really starting to take off here in the U.S. And there's been a monopoly here in the U.S. I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, PMP is the standard. It's synonymous. It's like the crescent wrench. It's not a crescent wrench. It's an adjustable open end wrench. And if you didn't join the military, you would never know that's the name of it. Or be my son, you would never know that. But that's what it is. And it's the same thing with PMP. It is the product that's synonymous with the process. And now with IPM, you're driving in there. So I'm curious, kind of walk us through a little bit of the high points and maybe a lesson learned or two in getting to the level that you're at with project management training and certification.
Yeah, and I think, to your point, far too many people mistake branding for quality, right? I mean, Coca-Cola, right? And I'm not an anti-Coke guy or anything at all, but it's become synonymous with soda. Hey, give me a Coke. Well, do you want a Pepsi? No, okay, that's fine. And as Camden drinks his Coke there, right? So
how to get the label to camera.
I don't think this is sponsored by Coca-Cola, but maybe it might be in the future. Who knows? But we often mistake branding for that. So a couple of things of advice. When I started looking at the building IPM, the Institute of Project Management into the U.S. and taking over that brand lock that PMP had and everything else, I knew there was going to be a fair amount of work. I think even as optimistic as I can be, I was overly optimistic in the time that I could accomplish some of the wins that I had. But it's the same thing that makes you a great Green Beret or a great entrepreneur or a great person is having a plan, adjusting your plan when needed, and not kicking your own butt too hard when you have to adjust a plan. But, everybody that knows me will have heard me say at least one time, stay the course, right? Stay the course, keep focused on it, keep the faith, stay the course, and it's having that tenacity and persistence to keep going. But far too often, we kick our own butts too hard when we're not hitting our goals or whatever. And that's one of the things I want to talk about today was goal setting and visions and everything else, right? But when you create the movement, capitalize on the things, right? I mean, when you're clearing a house in SF and you see a door open, you don't stand there and stare at the door, right? I mean, you don't just look at it, you go through, right? And David Allen says in Getting Things Done, it's not enough to look at the stairs and talk about walking up the stairs. You actually got to start walking, right? But that's the problem that most people face is back to the meditation thing, right? We talked about the shiny object people who chase those shiny objects and good ideas, but we didn't talk about the people that are too fearful to even allow the idea to gestate to its fullest. So when you have a healthy balance of chasing and killing the idea and you get that right size, and then you put the right work ethic and that everybody knows sales is hard. Everybody knows building a movement is hard. Everybody knows this, but then we go, oh, this was hard. I don't want to do it anymore. And that's why I say keep the faith, right? Keep the faith, celebrate the victories that you have, and keep moving forward, because your mindset, and notice this goes back to your 7 levels of energy, right? Like your mindset is palpable to everybody else. And that's that servant leadership thing that I was talking with Cam about on the email is just making sure that as a leader, you're not Eeyore out there going, oh, well, we're not hitting our goals. So, oh, well, you're never going to get anywhere with that. But you can't be the false prophet either and promising. You have to be true and honest and realistic. and you have to set a clear goal, and then you have to hold people and yourself accountable to achieving those goals. And that's why I've been successful, right? I knew where I wanted to be in the US. I put a plan of attack that I thought was pretty good about getting, the right awareness and getting people in. And now I've got people across industries. I've got people certified in the FBI and Nike and Microsoft and Google and Amazon, Humana Healthcare, RJ Reynolds, Jim Beam Suntory. I've got massive industries that we've got certification holders in who love our certifications because all of our project managers demonstrate skills. And so it's finding your difference and your point of difference and attaching that point of difference to a problem that industry has, and then staying the course and crushing it, because that's the only option that we have in life, right? Because otherwise life's going to kick you in the butt and spit you out, and you're not going to have anything left at the end of it.
Camden?
Sorry, I thought you had something there. No, I think that's a great point. And when you're really looking at it, it comes down to, I think, transparency with your team, because we're all going to take losses in the business world. You're going to take losses on a weekly basis, sometimes daily basis even, and you have to be able to deal with those and treat them for what they are, and be able to remove that negative emotion out of the situation and look at it as the big picture again.
So I'm going to change a word because, sorry, Cam, I'm not coming at you today. And this isn't revenge from previous podcasts, but I'm going to change a word from transparency to accountability, right? Because, transparency has this fluff about it and everything else that people say like, oh, I have to communicate. And my number one word in business is communication, right? Like Otis will tell you, I try and over communicate, and then I'll communicate again, and then try and re-communicate and do that. But when we say transparency, we feel like we have to like take our shirts off and let everybody see, the scars and the tattoos and whatever else, right? And I don't like that word. I prefer accountability, because accountability means that I hold myself accountable and I hold my team accountable, and we're all in this together, right? And once we're all accountable to that, transparency is plentiful throughout if you're communicating effectively and holding each other accountable throughout. But we don't like to say that, right? Because that sounds like a chore, right? Like, Cam, you're accountable to go hit this sales goal. Ugh, that sounds hard. That sounds like work, so I'm transparently communicating that you are accountable for this. But I don't like that word, because it's and again, I'm not coming at you for it, but
no, I think that makes a lot of
disgusting.
sense, because it really comes down to when you're being transparent, you're defining your different responsibilities, you're defining your goals, and you're defining things to hold people accountable for. And then the way you hold people accountable is you keep track of things. It's not hiding your sales numbers, it's being transparent and showing all of that. It's that you can be held accountable, and letting yourself be held accountable by the rest of your team, and taking
100%.
responsibility for things. Because and that is something you and I have talked about before, how you can too often, you have this wide array of things that you need to be responsible for inside your team. And if you don't know which aspect of it is yours, then no one's going to handle it. That whole kind of thing of there's a hole out back that needs to get dug. And if I don't say one of us three has to go do it, no one's going to go dig the hole, because no one wants to go dig the freaking hole. But you have to define that responsibility and have that clear path forward to be able to be accountable. Exactly.
Well, I'm gonna add on to that, because I mean those are great points. But then the next level leader is showing them why and how their accountability is a piece, their outcome that you show them, tell them your outcome is this piece of the pie that's going to provide this greater solution and the greater outcome for the team to serve a purpose. So it's communicating that, and then the art that I always teach my leaders that I work with. The art is, how do you communicate that so that they understand it? How do you serve it up so that they want to eat it when they want to eat it, and they actually eat it and enjoy it? That's where the art of the leadership, the art of the communication comes into that. I'm still thrilled about the whole project management thing, because it is truly, it's one of those things. I mean, it's not there yet. PMP and IPM's project certification aren't well known. Yeah, numerically the same. but what it demonstrates is that you can have a behemoth that you're going against, and if you have a product that is worthy, it can become that that thing, that's important, that certification that is either a competition, or if something doesn't even exist, that's what it's the same process. If you focus on the outcome of it and you stay the course, I think you said earlier, stay in the course, and I jump back to trust in the process. Same thing, different words, but you stay that, and it's going to happen. If it's a worthy cause, it can become that thing, and that's an exciting piece. And
I mean, this is gonna excite Cam, right? Sorry, Otis, but when I
yeah,
say paradigm shifting, like Cam's gonna go, ooh, business buzzword here. But when you truly can get access to people and shift their paradigm and break those molds that they think. So I had a great conversation with an executive in a Fortune 500 company the other day about project management training, and this person, he was all about the fact that I was a previous Green Beret and a project manager and a program manager for the government and everything else, right? And so, but he kept talking about like, yeah, well, Scott, the standards of that exam and PMP, and it's going to be hard to tell the executive team here. And I said, well, hey, I'll rephrase this. Like, let me just stop you right there for a second, sir, and tell you this. You don't get awarded the Green Beret because you passed an exam. I didn't read the manual on unconventional warfare and then go take a test and get awarded the Green Beret because I can quote the unconventional warfare manual. I was awarded the Green Beret that you respect so much because I demonstrated skills and had the experience to go. And he went, ugh. And then the epiphany came on, right? So I'm like, all of this, you've been sold a line of you got to pass a test to be qualified at something. That's like 20 years ago, and they're still making money from it. So the biggest difference in the two is PMP relies on a test. We make our candidates demonstrate skills, and every candidate demonstrates skills. And that's why projects that our candidates run are infinitely more successful. And corporations need that, right? Because now more than ever, COVID, realigning of businesses, everything else, project failures, or you can't keep having them cost your organization financially the way they have been. The government advertises in legislature that for every $1 billion in project management, minus DOD, everybody thinks the military is the biggest money wasters. 12.8% of every $1 billion is misallocated in project management money. That's $128 million of every billion that's mismanaged in projects. That's criminal. And it's all because these people read a book and take a test. And they don't, now they can talk about it all day long. I can tell you, I was a PMP. I can say, Otis, there's 3 official types of meetings. Did you know that there's information exchange, brainstorming, and decision making? And I can tell you all this other stuff, right? And it sounds great. In theory is fantastic. But there's got to be a time that you put your boots on and you put your gloves on. You get out there and you dig that hole that Cam was talking about, right? Somebody's got to be accountable, and the right person needs to get out there and do it.
One thing I think I want to ask y'all as we're talking about this and talking about, staying the course, trusting the process and all that, then how do you stop yourself from drinking the Kool-Aid? Because you can go too far down in that direction on the continuum, definitely.
No, and that's the seesaw effect, right? And that is, I have people. Otis, your dad, is one of the people I trust in like most in the world, right? So I steal and take so much of your dad's time that I ask him stuff and I farm ideas past him. And Devon's another one, right? So I'm always, whenever I do something, I'll let it gestate internally, and I'll kind of formulate to a point where I go, well, what about this? And then I'll do a soft launch, right? Because when I find myself drinking the Kool-Aid is when I got to go, all right, well, I've got to pitch this to someone. So I have my trusted people, my wife, Otis, Devon, that I pitch the ideas to. And then when they come back with resistance, I'll fine tune it, a little bit and tweak it and massage it a little bit here and there, then go, all right, now enough time has passed and I'll repitch it to them, and see. So when I find myself drinking the Kool-Aid too much, if you have the right people around you, they'll tell you you're drinking the Kool-Aid. They might not say it in those words, but if you just learn to listen, and communication, right, is 2 ways. So you can't just impart stuff all the time. I talk a lot when I'm nervous and when I'm on things and whatever, and I'm doing it now. So when I'm nervous and I talk a lot now, I'm an introvert. I would prefer nothing more than to sit in my office and not talk to anybody all day long, right? But that doesn't make sales. That doesn't bring on commerce. That doesn't build networks. But when I talk to people that I know and like and trust, I have to listen. And when they look at you like you're drinking the Kool-Aid, you have to be in tune and pick that up, because that's costly. And I don't like being inefficient, and I'm cheap, so I don't like wasting money. So those are the two things that make me not drink my own Kool-Aid too much.
Well, it's a fine line too. You know, you have to believe in what your product is, but you know what? If you're the only one that believes in it, you know, if you create this really awesome widget that does this really great thing for that project you were doing in your garage, and nobody else is doing that project, you know, you're probably not going to sell it. There might be one or two people, other people out there that are doing that same project and might run across it, but you know, you can believe in it, but you have to, the way you prevent drinking your own Kool-Aid is knowing what your customer wants. What does your client want? How do you really, you know, I heard a great definition the other day. A guy was talking about the difference between a customer and a client. And I really like this, and because a customer is a one-time buyer. They're coming in, they're buying a commodity. That's what they're doing. A client is a repeat buyer. And that's what we really want, is we want our clients to become raving fans of the idea that we have. And as you would do in any business school, you test the market space. You say, okay, well, let's see, you know, teenagers 15 to 19 in Southern Arizona. Let's see what they think about this. Okay, wrong demographic. Let's try ladies in Northwest Maine that are 45 to 55. Oh, wow, bingo. You know, you can test the market space on those sort of things and find it. And then what it really comes down to, and this also goes with the how far do you chase it, that side gig, if you will, how far do you chase it, is how much effort. I mean, after you test it 3 times and all 3 people come back and say, "Nah, it's a dumb idea." But if you really believe in it, do you test it one more time? That's where it's a bit of a guess, and it has to be a guess, because I guarantee there's millions of projects sitting in the garage right now where they ask their neighbor or their wife or husband about it, and they said, "That's stupid."
Well, the barrier to entry to start a business has never been lower, right? I mean, and we see it. Otis, you do a lot of mentoring in the veteran space, as do I as well, and we see it. I see it every single day. Somebody comes out. I had an Air Force female veteran come to me a couple weeks ago, and she said, you know, sorry if you're listening to this. I apologize for talking about you. I won't say your name though. But she said she's starting in the Air Force. She was a weather person in the Air Force, but she wants to start a photography business. She's never taken and paid and had photographs bought by anybody. She doesn't know how to use a camera, but she likes the idea of owning a photography business. So she's going to get a second mortgage on her house so that she can do she doesn't have any savings. She's going to do all this stuff. So she can buy her camera and rent a studio and do all this. And I'm going, oh my Lord, like, just please stop, you know? So sometimes you need somebody, that even a stranger, that will tell you that good idea that you're chasing, just stop, you know, just stop, you know? And it's just the ability to have that trust within your communities and your network to bring people. And this is kind of a segue into the academy as well, right? Because we've designed a thing that allows people access to A+ servant leaders who have their best interests at heart, and that's Academy. And so when you have that idea for your business and you come into Academy for free, it's not a sales pitch, and you are socializing your idea to others, you can get that honest feedback from other A+ people. You don't get the inane LinkedIn comments of great post, awesome, great idea, love it, you know, and the thumbs up and whatever. You get an actual conversation, and you get a conversation that's driven to help you by people who are screened and brought into the academy with nothing more on their plate than to help you out and to help you grow and succeed. And when you surround yourself with people like that, even total strangers, I've had 2 conversations with Daniel Redmond, a new friend of mine, and this guy blows me away every time, because he's got an awesome personality, he's got an awesome background, he's hilarious. You know, we were laughing on the call earlier, and I was late to join this one because of it, but he brings it all, but he's an honest guy. And I will go to him, even though I've only ever met him on Zoom twice for 2 half-hour meetings. I go to him as a trusted person because I know that he has an expertise in this area, right? So when you learn to listen to people that can help you and support you and check your ego at the door, your chances of being successful are more infinite.
And I think one thing that, as we're talking about this, it kind of goes back to what we were saying in the beginning of, if it's not working, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad idea. It's just something that's not there right now. I've got 10 different notebooks I have piled up in my office that are full of old ideas and different things and sketches of things I wanted to build and all this stuff that didn't get built. That doesn't mean that it's never going to get built. It's just not getting built right now. I don't have the time for it, or the market doesn't make sense, or whatever. But you want to keep those, and you want to keep them in the back of the book, because in all likelihood, it probably is a good idea. To your example, Dad, if you make your widget in your garage that solves a problem, maybe more people are going to have that problem in the future. Maybe you can market it better in the future. Maybe there's a tweak you can make on it that'll help you hit your sales. There's something there, and things change all the time. You don't want to beat yourself up over something like it was a bad idea, as much as just not right now. And, maybe the environment will change in the future.
Well,
I beat myself up all the time.
It reminds me of a great story about, and I don't remember the guy's name, but it was this guy that was a treasure hunter, so searching for, Spanish galleon or whatever in the Caribbean, and how he searched for 20 years for this thing. And that was his sole focus. And that was all he did, was search and search and search. But you know why he was able to continue the search? Was because he believed it was there. And when you
James
believe
Dyson with the Dyson vacuum.
Yeah, when you believe it's there, Dyson, yeah, another great example. When you believe it's there, you have to continue on. Now, you have to put food on the table. You have to do some other things, right? That may not be, going out and, digging for gold in the Alaskan Klondike, and you believe that gold is there on your claim. That's all well and good until you run out of money and reality sets in. There is reality, and that's the thing. I think people tend to mix it up, because if you believe that your idea is the solution and truly believe that it will serve people, that solution will serve people, then keep doing it. But you also got to live, right? So that's where people, I think, really get screwed up and my idea's crap, because I'm not making money on it. Well, what if you had a part-time job? What if you had a full-time job and this was just a side gig that you did? All those sort of things that you can do to keep driving that idea forward. If you truly believe in it, don't quit on it. Keep going. If you truly believe in it, that's what you have to do.
Don't take out debt for your idea.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a
number one reason for failure, because people go into debt and all of a sudden you have that bill that you have to pay, right? People laugh at me because I refuse to do debt, period. Like I will not do debt at all. My wife and I use a debit card, so every vacation that we take or whatever, those funds come right out of our checking account, right? So booking airline tickets, booking hotels, booking whatever. We don't do credit cards. We don't do debt. We don't do debt at all. And that's one of the reasons that I do have the flexibility in DOL Coach, apologies, my company that I run, I should know the name of. But I had the flexibility because, I did the math real quick when I was leaving the Institute in my full-time role and said, well, to make my salary, all I have to do is this. And because I didn't have debt, because I didn't have a car payment, because I didn't have this, because I didn't have that on the horizon, my wife and I also live beneath our means. So when you do all these things and you set yourself up for success and then you chase that success, you have an infinitely better chance, right? But I couldn't do that if I had a $5,000 credit card payment that I had to make every month because I was out, buying stuff all the time and I had to, no impulse control and buying the new toys that I wanted and whatever. Now, I'm staring at you guys on my new iPad Pro that I've obsessed about for 6 months and bought, right? So I like buying new toys and everything else, even though I am cheap. But just make sure, and that's part of being an entrepreneur, do things at the right time. Don't do things because you want to do it. Do them at the right time. And if you don't think it's the right time, trust your gut, because it's not. And if you think like, well, I've got this client coming in, and because that's coming in, I'll go out and I'll hire all these people and I'll do this. Well, if that client doesn't come in, you're screwed. And now you're in the hurt locker and you're letting people go. I killed a partnership yesterday with an organization. I won't say their name. But the email conversations back and forth as they were trying to do things was highly condescending, highly irritating. They weren't servant leaders. They were C- people at best, despite an academic pedigree and whatever else. And I got to the point to where I just said, you know what? I'm done with this. Like, no, we're putting everything on pause, period. And they got so mad that I had the wherewithal to say they were putting something on pause. But again, every Green Beret will tell you, or any Green Beret worth his salt will tell you, standards. If this is a standard, you can fall beneath the standard periodically, but you better sure as hell get back above that thing first chance coming, right? Like, it happens periodically that you might fall beneath the standard, but you better get right back on top of it. The standards are there for a reason. And having the comfort in myself, even in a vested relationship, I spent probably 100 hours with this partner previously. I just cut bait. And then on the walk yesterday, my wife had us saying, "Oh, are you sure you want to do this? That was pretty aggressive email that you sent back and everything else and this and that." I said, 100% sure. Never felt better about anything in my life. So have the confidence in the wherewithal to stick to your guns and trust your gut, because you know what's right and you know what's wrong. And far too often we try and convince ourselves that one is the other when it's truly not, right?
It
If
reminds
the
me.
emperor is naked, the emperor is naked.
We always like to work in a few quotes every now and then, and that's reminds me of a Sturgill Simpson song. If there is a doubt, then there ain't no doubt, because your gut don't lie. That's it. There's you have those feelings for a reason, and you got to be able to trust yourself a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, and that
100%.
leads me to something else I wanted to jump into is, and you kind of you cleared a path for me to talk about that, is
You're welcome.
how do you judge people? Where do where's that Scott Kinder judgment? And judgment's not the right, I hate using that word, because we don't want to judge people, but we also want to measure and see if they're the right fit. And maybe that's a better way of applying it. So I'm curious, how do you measure potential business clients, partners, associates? What's your skill on that? What tools do you use?
I use 44 years of being on this earth is my skills, right? Everything that I've gained along the way are my skills at judging people. But again, it's accountability and standards, right? I mean, so here's another example besides the partners that I killed yesterday, because I'm coming across as kind of this like cutthroat guy, and I'm really not. I'm quite empathetic, and I really do like to help people out. But so we're starting this deal on Mentors and Academy thing, and I had, and they're on this spreadsheet, so I can't lie about this right now, right? And notice will tell you if I am. I had 2 people that I personally introduced and highly endorsed to come on board as mentors, and both of them played the "I'm too cool for this" and delays and whatever, and didn't want to jump into the process and didn't want to support it. And so, without any feedback from my partners in the mentor thing, Otis and Devon, I said, "Nope, I'm killing their application already." So I denied them, even though I was the one that brought them on board, right? Because again, here's the standard. They fell beneath it. I communicated to them that they were beneath the standard. They needed to up their game a little bit, and they consistently blew me off. And so, I've been burnt so many times in the past in so many different ways that it's gives me a true azimuth on that accountability check, right? And now I'm not a zero defect guy at all. I mean, so again, people are going to fall beneath it and rise above it, and that's fine. I have more defects, Otis will tell you, than I can even name in a 3-hour podcast, right? If I just went one defect a second for 3 hours, I could still be ongoing. But accountability, right? Accountability and standards. When somebody says they're going to do something, and then somebody tells you that they're going to do something and consistently doesn't do it, you got to cut bait. You got to let them go, because they're not the right fit for you at all. And it's that ability that I didn't have a year ago to cut bait. I didn't possess the same ability that I do now. That's why I said it's 44 years of being on the earth, right? Because what I'm doing now is literally the culmination of my time in the investment banking world at Morgan Stanley, and my time in the internet startup world, you know, and my time as a Green Beret, my time as a federal guy, and my time as an entrepreneur and a COO of the Institute, all these things together, my experiences with Business Networking International, my experiences here, all these things give me the ability to go, that's not right. And now I finally have the stuff to go, if that's not right, what am I going to do about it? Because before, and this is a trait that most people don't have, is they'll go, that's not right. Oh, well, and they'll go chase something else. And then they'll start, that's not right. And they'll start gossiping about it. And oh, that's not right. And they'll start getting mad. I'm the guy that says, that's not right. And notice I'll tell you, I'm not lying. That's not right. What are we going to do to fix it? Right. And that's not right. How do we projectize this fix or whatever? I blew up your dad yesterday accidentally for a VBLM meeting because I had other calls, and I felt like ass all day because of it, you know? So again, defect, right? Like too busy, too doing whatever else, but standards and accountability. And I'm the first to say, like, I really mucked that up hardcore, and I fell right down here. But I'll make sure as hell that I jump back above that standards line the first chance that I get, and make right what I did wrong.
Well, I want to jump on something. I want to squeeze that onion a little bit. And God, I don't know why the hell I said onion. I don't even like onion.
Squeeze that onion.
Squeeze that onion. Yeah, I'm gonna get some onion juice out of this one, buddy. But here's what I want. I mean, 44 years. The last time I checked, Camden ain't that old, right? But the way that we accelerate is we find somebody else who's walked that path before us, and we learn their lessons. And if I recall, I'll you know me, and I screw up quotes all the time, but you know, I'll modify this quote. It is, you know, a smart person learns from their mistakes. A genius learns from others. I mean, didn't say that I learned from a genius. It said I'm learning from somebody else's mistakes. So what I want to throw at you, Scott, is and staying in that validating quality associates and quality network, you know, inner circle type things, so that our listeners, now I was going to say younger, but hell, it ain't just younger, anybody. What's a couple of key points that they could say, man, if I set this standard and I use that as a measuring stick going forward, you know, can you give us like 3 or 4 of those things to think about and digest?
So, I mean, if you're talking about surrounding yourself with the right people, right, and 3 or 4 qualities for standard development of your own that you want to surround yourself with people as, the very one, first and foremost, you want somebody that's going to complement your skill set, right, and add to your skill set. And that's another problem that far too many of us do, right? Camden is a university graduate. He's a rugby guy, so he wants to go hang out with people because we like people that are like ourselves, right? I'm a Green Beret, so I want to surround myself with Green Berets. So I want to go do this. Devon is a black female African-American lady. And she's got an MBA, and she was an MP officer. And Otis knows I make fun of her for being an MP officer all the time. I love her, right? Like, it's a fact that she's black. She knows she's black, so I'm not saying anything negative about her being black, but she comes from an entire different background than I do, right? And I love it. She compliments me so well. She thinks everything that she thinks about is at scale, right? So I have an idea, and she's already like scaling it out and trying to go for it. And I have to bring her back to see. Whereas Otis, the other person I go to all the time, he's the first one to tell me like, okay, hold on, slow your roll here. You know, let's get this whole thing up and going and really kind of processize it and whatever. So just within those 2 people, I've got the person that goes, yeah, boom, and she's off to the races. And then I've got the person like, let's dot the I's and cross the T's here and go. So tip number 1, make sure people are complimenting you and you get enough different access, because if you get only, you know, guys on your ODA or guys on your rugby team or guys from your MBA program or guys and girls from whatever that are just like you know, Einstein said you can't solve problems by using the same thinking that created them, right? And so that's one of the things that I brought to the entrepreneur world is I'm a Green Beret. I think unconventionally. I don't think like you do because I'm not a degree mill generating guy. I'm not saying anything negative about that, but I think differently than you do. When you tell me something, I'm going to go, no, that's not real world, right? So, but I also want access to Cam because Cam is that different person who brings that different view set on it. So when you do, so tip number 2, when you do surround yourself with people that compliment you, respect their opinions and their backgrounds. Don't try and shut them up all the time. And that's a mistake that far too many of us make, is we try and tell them, like, no, Otis, it has to be done this way. No, Cam, I'm older than you, or I did more deployments than you, so I know better, or I graduated this school and my MBA program is from a top 10 school and yours is only from a top 20 school, so I'm infinitely better, or whatever, right? Like,
That's
you know, and
generous
we
for
all
U of A.
but we all do that, right? So surround yourself with complimentary people, listen to them. And then, you know, the third thing is, as you're listening to them, take their advice and feedback, fight where necessary to defend your position, but also give up and retreat in your position when you have to, because they are telling you something out of a position of care for you, because they do care about you. And if somebody takes the time to spend with you, time is the most precious commodity we have. And so when you spend time with somebody, we all think that money is, and I wrote a LinkedIn article recently saying, like, we all feel lucky if we only get burned by wasting our time, right? I get pissed if I waste my time. Like, I get more angry if I waste my time. And that's why, you know, yesterday missing the VBLM, I felt like crap all day because of it. Wasting time to me is the most criminally stupid thing that we can do, because we all have the same amount of time. We all have, it's an hourglass, right? So when you surround yourself with people who are voluntarily giving you their time, respect it, but don't fall victim that you are unworthy of doing it your way, right? Defend your position and have a conversation. And the other thing is, as a society, and I live in Australia right now, as everybody knows, in Melbourne, but as an American Australian society, we're so polarized, right? I'm a Republican, so Democrats instantly hate me. They think that I instantly hate them because they're Democrats. I just want to have civil conversations with people and welcome differing opinions, right? I like talking to people with differing opinions because I want to educate myself on that. So I don't, those people compliment me, right? So get rid of your own prejudices and perceptions and surround yourself with people and listen and engage in a dialogue. I tell everybody, I was lucky enough to be on the Bob and Sherry radio show, and Sherry is about as opposite as I can be politically on the spectrum, right? I mean, sometimes when I look at her, and I love her, she's one of my best friends now, I love her, but when I look at her Twitter feed, I cringe, right? I'm like, oh God, this is painful to read. But at the same time, we had a 4-hour conversation the first time we met. We just sat down and she was talking about gun control, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about that, and we were talking about whatever. And I didn't call her a snowflake. She didn't call me a Nazi. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. We had a civil conversation about things, and I came out a better person because of it. Now, having spent time with me, she probably came out, worse for the wear. But I came out better because of it. So when you surround yourself with complimentary people and you allow yourself to listen, defend your positions, engage in that conversation and let yourself hear it, because you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't.
You know, I think I'll kind of take the political side of that and then tie it back into the team side, because I definitely have one of my best friends down here in Tucson, the same type of thing, kind of opposite end of the spectrum. But I love talking with them, because what happens when you actually talk with people is you get past the soundbite. You get past the one-liners. You get past all that bullshit, really, and you get into why people really believe what they believe, and that's where you realize how similar we all are to each other. That we have reasons that we believe this stuff. Everyone has put thought into their beliefs, or at least most people have, and that hard thought that they put into their beliefs, it's there for a good reason, and it makes sense, and you have to talk to them to be able to understand that, unpack it a little bit, and then you don't look at them like, oh, that guy's crazy liberal, crazy Republican, whatever you want to say. You're like, oh, well, he believes this, and because he believes that, yada yada yada, and it goes down the line, and then he votes a certain way. And you kind of have that same type of thing when you're in the team setting of, you have to have what you believe, be strong in what you believe, but know why you believe it, and be able to push forward and have those conversations about that. One of my favorite things I've in a couple teams I've worked with, the phrase I always used is, none of us want to act like we know what we're doing. We want to be open like we're amateurs, and take the outside opinions from people that are literally amateurs. If we're setting up agriculture, we're setting up a new grow system. I don't have that much experience working directly with hydroponics. I was working with a guy who had years and years and years of experience working with plants, and he was great. But I would walk in all the time and go, hey man, why do you do that? Why don't we do this? Why don't we? And he'd go, oh, you don't do that. I'm like, well, why not? But you have to kind of have that mindset and be able to look at things like an amateur and step back a little bit. And because that's where innovation comes from. That's where creativity comes from. Scott, I think you said it earlier, that the you can't solve a problem using the same view or whatever you said
Thinking
that
as a
created the
creator.
problem.
I
Exactly.
didn't say Einstein said it, so I
Oh,
just
well,
quoted
I
him.
mean, we'll give you credit.
I'll
But
take it.
you have to be able to have that humility and let people come in and ask, the stupid questions, really, because there's no such thing as stupid questions, and start rethinking through those problems and get out there and, try out those creative solutions.
And you said something, and I get accused all the time being a passionate guy, right? And I am a passionate guy. Like when I believe in something, like I believe in it fully. But it's less passion, and it's more conviction. And I think if you have conviction in life and conviction on your path and conviction on your plan, that you're going to be more successful in setting yourself up, right? Because humility, I love that word, right? And I think I am a very humble guy. Like I try not to come across as an egotistical ass for the most part, and talking about killing partners and whatever. But I try and be humble and look at things. Every problem set that I look at when I give advice to somebody, or transition support or business support or coaching or whatever, is what would I tell my son, or what would I tell myself if I was in their shoes, right? Like, and I know my conviction of I don't do debt, I don't do this, I don't do that, right? Those are my things that make me me, and everybody has those, right? So respect those and understand what is at the heart of those, but also come at it, as a viewpoint of, like you said, why? If you just ask somebody why, it's a great question, and people don't want to defend it all the time, because normally their answer is, well, because I was told to think that way, or because that's what my university professor told me I had to do, or that's because that's why I've always done it, right? And you go, okay, well, okay, you do you then, you go be you and do well.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you don't ask why, you kind of get lost. You get lost in, to take the term I used earlier, the soundbite, and you get lost in that stuff. And one of the really interesting things, and I'm going to butcher this, I'm not even going to try to paraphrase it, is that if you take people, and there's been some clinical trials of this, where you take groups of people and you ask them how confident they are in how something works. Like, Scott, do you know how a toilet works? And everyone goes, of course I know how a toilet works. I'm not an idiot. And then you rephrase it, you go back to them later on, and you say something, okay, explain to me how a toilet works. And then all of a sudden, no one knows anything about a toilet all of a sudden. And the same thing works for these ideas. It's not just this is how we should be growing our plants in our farm. It's why are we growing those plants in the farm? Because if you're not thinking about the why, then you get caught up and you get caught up in the weeds, and you never really do anything, because you don't know what you're talking about. You're just feeding out those sound bites. You're just moving forward based off one thing you heard one time and it worked out, so you never question it again, but you should be questioning it.
100%.
No, this great conversation. And it's amazing how that question I asked about, give us a couple of insights into evaluating people, turned into how to create a team and organize and operate a team efficiently. I mean, that's, to summarize what we were just talking about, that's really what it is. Don't surround yourself with yes people. Mm-hmm. And don't surround yourself with people that look exactly like you. Although there is a tribe aspect that we could talk about, and tribes are so important in our caveman mind of like-minded people, and creating that. They don't always have to look exactly like you or dress like you, but you got to have some commonality across it. You can't have people in your team that are complete opposites and have no common ground. And if that happens, then you're not going to have a successful team. But if you have a common ground and a common purpose, and the purpose of that team could be the common ground for two people that are otherwise complete opposites, solving world hunger. There's a gazillion ways of doing that. And there's some people that are really passionate that they've got the way to do it. And if you were to put two of those organizations in the room, they'd probably get in a little bit of an argument about what's the right way and what's the wrong way, and get into that and lose that, and never have that true purpose of solving world hunger. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're talking about. When you have people, you want them to have a differing point of view and differing background, but you want to create your team so that everybody has a unifying purpose in that team. And that's where you get the success of the team. And that's where you start to evaluate those people and their performance and what they do and how they do it.
I
Yeah.
think I think that goes back to one of the things that's become like our favorite saying on the show, really, over the 44 episodes now, is the diversity of opinion, diversity of background, diversity of thought processes, of schooling, and all this different stuff. It's only useful if you're working towards a common goal. It serves no purpose if you guys are all pointed in different directions. But when you are working towards a common goal, it's the best thing possible, because you're getting all that different input, different perspectives on things, and you're going to solve problems much better.
Couldn't agree more. Love it.
So Cam, what'd you learn today?
Scott taught me that accountability is better than transparency, and I like that a lot. And I know I used the word transparency about 3 times in my conversation about that, but I think they can kind of go in together. But I like that thought process of focusing on accountability rather than transparency. And I also learned that Scott is much more awake 5 hours later in the day when we're recording at 2 p.m. here in Arizona rather than 9 a.m.
Yes. Yes. And I actually combed my hair today, which is rare nowadays.
So wait, I got to
And
ask you then, Scott, combing the hair, putting on the button up, is that where the energy comes from, like we talked about last time?
No.
Or is the energy coming from being awake?
I got to tell you, 100% sincerity. I had 2 calls with approved DOL mentors this morning, Zach Rivera and Daniel Redmond. And the energy those guys bring, they're mentors for a reason, and they're approved. The energy that they bring, and going from Daniel to this, I'm up and I'm moving around and I'm talking to them, and I'm like, and now I've got so many tasks on my overdue list right now that I shouldn't be in a good mood, but I am, right? And I mean, it's Friday over here, and my kids are off of school today because they have yet another student-free day from the Victorian government. Like, thanks teachers for that. But I shouldn't be in a good mood. But I'm in a fantastic mood today, and I didn't let Cam trump me this morning, so it's all good. So, or at least I don't feel like I let Cam trump me. I'm sure Otis will find a photo to post on social media, which makes me look like a raving idiot. So otherwise,
No, well done so far, Scott. Although it's not over yet.
It's not over yet.
God, what'd you learn?
This is going to sound very simplistic, but again, I write everything down on my iPad mini, and that's why I always have this thing. That's my good notes app I live with. But when you said customer versus clients, that resonated with me quite a bit, because I think that far too often we get in the trap of creating customers instead of creating clients. And I know, Otis, you've talked to me Blue Ocean stuff before, and some of the consulting calls that we've done and everything else. But I really quite like the renewed focus on customers versus clients, and just bringing that back out. So I also learned that Cam can't quote people for shit, and that he
I
so
quoted Sturgill
that's
Simpson,
pretty
all right.
Exactly. That's what's
Sturgill
important.
Simpson, the modern day stoic, right?
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
What'd you learn today, Dad?
Well, for me, it's the reiteration of trusting the process. If you have an idea, and I keep going back to the project management certification, because I think it's such a great example of a behemoth that's been in existence and is just, quite frankly, become comfortable with where it's at. And that comfort, it just has become that organization, that beast, that there's no other option. And what IPM and Scott has done with project management is creating this option, and pushed it long enough to where it wasn't just this little squeaky thing. Then it was the squeaky thing that the behemoth tried to slap, and now the behemoth's like, oh, we need to start changing the way we do things. Because I do a couple of things with the Project Management Institute chapter here in Denver, and I've learned a couple of things and seeing things change, and that's a great thing, because competition drives change. So the fun,
but their changes, lowering
on,
standards. Their changes is all like what they advertise. They're just doing this.
Yeah,
Blood's
I
in
mean,
the
that may
water.
be.
I'm going after
they're doing other things like that also. But the point is, though, is the little guy can work, and if you work hard enough, and you stay focused on it and you trust that process and you stay the course because you believe in your product, then you can succeed at it and you can, create a different type of Coca-Cola and beat them, or a Pepsi or whatever, right? I mean, you can do that if you work at it and trust the process and are willing to put into it. I think that's the big thing. So Scott, how can people get a hold of you?
My website is dolcoach.com, so you can go there and find me. It's being tweaked and updated every day, so there's still some Latin phrases hidden throughout the WordPress that you might find on something else, but it's pretty it's at the 80-90% solution, so it's getting there pretty quick. And my email address is scott@dolcoach.com. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, both as Scott or as DOL Coach. So I'd love to connect with anybody and talk. So if you have any questions about project management or the academy and mentoring and coaching, or just want to tell me how souped up I am, like, feel free to reach out. I get it every day. So so I'm happy to. It's interesting though, Otis. Sorry, real quick sidebar. None of the three of us in the guidance that we gave, and let's write this down, none of us said the key to success was hard work and hours that you put in. And I think that when you listen to the Daniel Redman interview that I just did, he talks about hours at work and all that other stuff, but none of us said, putting in the hours. We always said, trust the process, do this, surround yourself with people and whatever else. So it's pretty cool that we all just assume that we're going to work hard, and I like that. So sorry, sidebar.
No, that's all right. We could keep going on the sidebar. I was going to say, because what that makes me think of is it really comes down to, because it's not necessarily hours worked or getting in there and working and working and working. It's about the passion. It's about the perseverance and all these types of other types of factors. Because if you get in there and work, but you're not passionate about what you're doing, or you're not going to persevere through the hard times, then you're not going to be successfgoing.
No, perfect.
Hard work.
Well said,
work
Cam. I'll give you.
I'm going to sum it up. Hard work does not equal success. Work in the right direction on the right thing equals success.
But we were all talking, right? Energy and this and that and whatever. And none of us said, and be prepared, son, to work your absolute tail off, your fingers to the bone, right? Like, it's just interesting to me that paradigm, again, Cam, paradigm shifting, right, is long gone, that we all assume that we'll work hard and we'll go. And that's a great assumption, because we all know how to work. Now it's just making sure the work is right sized and focused, as Cam said, on the right goals.
Great. Well,
awesome.
Thank you all again for listening to today's show. Special thanks to our guest, Scott Kinder, for joining us again today, and our sponsor, MASH Military and Athletic Strength Hemp Oil. You can check out the recent episodes of the Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotishow.buzzsprout.com. Cam and Otis Show is on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.